Maldives is not waiting for reforms of the international finance architecture or for flows of public finance internationally to come. You're really driving forward your own fiscal efficiencies and effectiveness, but of course that is having consequences, as you said, in terms of the billions of savings you could have made if you had access to concessional finance around renewable energy. So thank you so much, Your Excellency. I'm now going to pass, I've got a much shorter question, sir, for His Excellency Professor Mutuli Mkube of Ministry of Finance in Zimbabwe. So my shorter question to you is, I've heard, and I think everyone will have heard of some of the innovative work you're doing there on sugar-sweetened beverage taxes, for example. And I wanted to know how Zimbabwe is leveraging innovative fiscal tools to align public finance with health, climate, employment goals. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, distinguished guests, development partners, and representatives of international and regional organizations. Thank you very much. My name is Joseph Berger. I'm the Chief Director, Ministry of Finance, and standing in for Professor Antonio. Thank you. You did allude to very important issues that are currently confronting our country as a developing economy. Zimbabwe faces many of the challenges that also other Southern African countries are facing on a continuing basis. Climate change is a difficult issue for us, an abiding challenge that we face on an ongoing basis. We face extreme weather conditions. We're just coming out of the drought, which has decimated our agriculture over the past over the past year or so, with agriculture decline estimated anywhere in the double digit. A few years ago, we also faced Cyclone Haggai, which also decimated greater parts of the eastern provinces of our country. Just to illustrate the extreme weather conditions that we are facing, impacting on both agriculture production as well as food and cereal production. Our country also faces increasing vulnerabilities, especially also in response to shocks, external shocks that are affecting not only the balance of payments, but the economy in general in terms of the economic performance. Over the past few years, we have recorded some substantial growth in GDP, which of course translates also to revenue generation, but we have again been impacted by the drought, as I have pointed out. Consequently, as a result, we have had to try to be innovative in terms of mechanisms for raising resources, domestic resources, to support the multi-layered interventions that the company is doing, whether to do with the food and green support to some of the vulnerable communities, or to do with supporting education. Zimbabwe has a system which is such that the poor are supported by government in terms of school fees and so forth. And also issues to do with health broadly. So accordingly, to be specific to your question, what government has done is to introduce a beverages and sugar tax content, which is specific for the treatment of cancers, which we are facing a plague of multi-layered cancers in the economy. So government did introduce that tax 24 months or so, and in the year 2024, we did manage to raise somewhat close to $30 million, which was dedicated, created a dedicated fund towards supporting health. We also further explored and introduced some ancillary health-related taxes, where we said we could be able to raise additional resources. For example, by placing some small taxes on fast foods, for instance, Nando's, chicken, Big Mac, so forth. And we were able also to raise some money that we are dedicating towards health and SDGs, advancing SDGs in Zimbabwe. There are a number of things that also we're doing, Chair, but perhaps with your permission, I might end here.
For those remarks, and really drawing our attention to how tax policy can through the taxes on sugar, sweetened beverage that we mentioned. So thank you so much, sir. I'm now going to pass over to Ms. Maria del Carmen Bonilla Rodriguez, Head of the Public Credit and International Affairs Unit of the Ministry of Finance of Mexico. And Mexico has pioneered, as I understand, SDG budgeting, and also issued a number of SDG sovereign bonds, if I understand correctly. How has your sustainable finance mobilization strategy helped integrate these tools into national and subnational fiscal strategies? To you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to the representatives of every country in the room. But I would start by telling that Mexico federal budget has been linked to the SDGs since 2018. This has allowed us strategic planning and monitoring progress towards achieving them. As of 2025, 84.5% of the budgetary programs are aligned with at least one SDG, and this linkage has helped us to map exactly the contribution of each of the SDGs to the budgetary lines that we are financing through the bonds. So this is a very good mechanism for public policy. These sovereign bonds has specific eligible expenditures. They are part of a framework and a governance that is behind, a very strong governance that is behind that. We have third-party opinion. Actually, the UNDP is an observer in everything that we conduct through that budgetary lines. We exclude some of the budgetary items that could have some troubles while assessing the specific targets that we have. And as of today, around $23 billion have been issued in dollars, euro, Japanese yen, and Mexican pesos, both local and international markets. We have done a strong effort as well in trying to develop our local market, and it has been a very successful strategy. The net proceeds of the bonds are allocated to these eligible expenditures across different environmental and social areas. We publish a yearly allocation and impact report to comply with the third-party opinion requests. And we have, although we are not issuing sustainability-linked bonds, because these are only sustainable bonds, we have several indicators in the budgetary programs. And this is a way for the investors to replicate what we are trying to do in a trend basis. And also is very good for strategic planning, as I mentioned, transparency and accountability, because all of these proceeds have these specific reports. We can monitor and evaluate the policy because it has traceability, and also it's helping us to match the financial sustainability program that we have, using the financial sector as a way to multiply the effect within the economy. So it's not only the federal government, but also the national development banks, and right now we are trying to include as well the private sector. We have a strong commitment as well through the responsible management of public budget and of public debt, and we are working with every kind of partnerships or investments, trying to see in these most disadvantaged areas that this is a key feature of our framework, that we allocate the resources starting with these disadvantaged areas and then we go bottom up. Also in partnership with business and main training partners to increase productivity and social well-being. So in a nutshell, that is basically how we are linking this across the economy. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much to all of you for really, as I said at the beginning, demonstrating the links between development outcomes, fiscal policy, and governance. I think we had a great example there about creating fiscal space through investment in renewables. We had an example of how to deliver on health outcomes through the use of health tax, which also raises revenues. And also finally the example of linking SDG-related budget tracking to the issuance of SDG-related debt instruments. I think you said, to the value of $23 billion. So a very significant boost, I'm sure, to your fiscal capacity. So, colleagues, this is a moment where we can all take a breath and think of a question to ask. I know we're in many panels where we don't get that opportunity, so we may be a bit out of practice. But we do have some time here, and I'm very willing just to ramble on for another 10 minutes, unless there are some questions, and luckily there are for you, because I would have rambled. Yes, please, and as you ask, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Angel Thomas. I work for the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Nigeria, the tax authority.
You're going to have to get.
So my question is for the representative from, was it Zimbabwe or Zambia? I'm not sure.
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe.
You might need to change your question.
I'd like to know if there was any resistance to this beverage tax, and if there was, how did you address it? Or if there wasn't, what did you do to manage the possible pushback? Thank you.
That's an excellent question. The microphone made it just as you finished your question. That was a brilliant question. They don't all have to be as brilliant as that, I assure you. So just looking for a few more questions, comments that colleagues would like to make. It's a very important moment to exercise the vocal cords. Yes, there, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Nancy Labungu. I am the Auditor General of Kenya. Now, when it comes to financing and public finance management systems, it is important that they bring into place accountability, transparency in the use of public resources, and of course efficiency, effectiveness, and impact with regard to delivery of SDGs. I did not hear any of the panelists talk about the role of Supreme Audit institutions in providing independent assurance that indeed the findings that are being unlocked are going to be utilized in a transparent and impactful way. We would like to hear that.
Yes. Yes. We certainly would. So thank you for asking that question. Anyone else with a question for now? Don't worry, there is another opportunity later. So we'll be coming back to you. Prepare yourselves. But those were two excellent questions, weren't they? One really focused on the role of audit, and the other really on the role of politics, I would say. So, colleagues, I'm going to ask if it's okay, our colleague from Zimbabwe, to respond to the first, and then all colleagues, please respond to the second as you wish.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Thank you for your very fundamental and important question, my sister. Yes, we can confirm that there is initially, what would I call it? I'm looking for better English word in place of resistance. Probably discomfort and reticence. Perhaps reticence, yes, and a lot of discomfort. So, what the ministry does, and in particular led by the minister and the permanent secretary, is they go out to the public. Nearly all senior officials in the ministry, they go out to the public to engage the public, explaining to them why we are undertaking certain tax initiatives and how much we seek to raise and how we seek to deploy the funds, particularly those that are specifically dedicated to, for example, in this case, the health sector, for instance. So there is that ongoing engagement, and also it assists a lot to highlight to the public that all these funds are subject both to parliamentary oversight through the Parliamentary Budget and Finance Portfolio Committee, as well as through the Auditor General. And I'm sure colleagues will speak about Auditor General issues as well. Every tax revenue in Zimbabwe and the entire budget is actually subject to the Auditor General, and reports are sent to Parliament. And where remedial measures are required, these also have to be implemented properly
on Mexico's perspective, we have a third-party opinion coming from an independent agency. The compliance with ICMA principles are actually a part of what is required to issue a bond in international markets. It is the same framework we use for international markets and for local markets. Then we have also another opinion from the Superior Audit of the Federation that actually is a body that has the endorsement from the Congress that actually revisit every year the correct use of the framework applied to the budgetary lines. Then we have as well some of the indicators. To be honest, we don't have 100%, but our objective is to move there. And it's used from an autonomous body that actually is the National Statistic Agency. And we have also on the federal government the 2030 Agenda Intersecretariat Committee. And this committee every year as well does a follow-up of which type of budgetary lines and which type of ministries are going to fund their needs through this type of funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. As I said earlier, the funding that we get is very severely in a shortage. So for us, mismanagement of the funds is perhaps not the issue. But having said that, whatever we are able to get through donors and agencies, we ensure that we are responsible in how we utilize the funds through monitoring, reporting, and a review process. In combination with our donors and agents, we ensure that they are utilized properly to the purpose for which we are getting it. Our public auditor general is very stringent in his reporting. They are free to publish their findings as they see fit and hold us governments accountable for how we utilize those funds. So I believe we tick that box that has been questioned. We ensure that our funds are utilized properly and accountably, and we produce or we try to achieve the results for which we raise those funds.
Great, thank you so much to all three of our panelists, and really congratulations on your leadership of this challenging agenda of aligning public finance and mobilizing additional public finance for the SDGs. Given all the constraints, I think it's incredibly laudable, your leadership and your pioneering innovations in the space. So colleagues, if we could give our panelists a last round of applause. Thank you so much for taking your seats as I introduce our next panel. And if you remember when I began, I set us up by saying we'll have some countries that are really pioneering innovations on public finance for SDGs, and then followed by that a panel of supporting partners in this ecosystem who are also pioneering new ways of supporting these endeavors. So I'm now going to invite, and like last time, it's exciting because I don't know if everybody is in the room, but I hope they are. So I'm going to invite Her Excellency Ms. Mari Ratnik, Vice Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development Cooperation of Estonia. Please. Yes. Join me. So that's a success. And next, Her Excellency Diana Piazza, Vice Minister and Secretary for International Development Cooperation of Sweden. Please, thank you so much. Third was Hege Halland, Director General, Department for Sustainable Development, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Norway. Thank you so much. And to bring some gender balance, Matt Davies, Assistant Director, Fiscal Affairs Department, IMF. And then to give less balance, Oria Goni, please bring your chair up, Oria, you should, who is lead advisor for public finance for SDGs in my very own institution, UNDP. So thank you, colleagues, for joining us, and thank you for being 100%. We've got all our panelists. Again, I'm going to ask questions which might be a bit long, but our intention is to provoke a response of around 5 minutes. And I'm going to start with Her Excellency Ms. Mari Ratnik from Estonia, if that's okay. And my question to you is, Estonia has brought digital innovation in particular and transparency to public financial management? How can the lessons from Estonia's own digital transformation be leveraged to help other countries on this endeavour? Over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for you indeed organising this event and also inviting us. So great to be here, and indeed that digitalization and the knowledge that we have gained over more than 30 years from that is something that we are ready to share with other countries, and that we do also mainly focusing on African region. So what we think is when we talk about, and then talk about only one part, how digitalization and tech innovations in tax system actually help to gain more resources, own resources, how we can be more transparent, efficient, and smooth. Also, when we talk about, for example, relationship with entrepreneurs. So it's about mindset, how you move from the bookkeeping function to strategic enabler, also in sustainable development. So, and it is something that it's not only the fiscal necessity, but it's really something that you can, as I said, transparency, and shape transparency, and also policy coherence, for example. So we run our tax services online since 2000. It's highly popular. Since 11 years, our tax system has been ranked the most competitive among OECD states. Just to bring you some examples. But this is something that means that basically you can do everything online, everything is pre-filled, but we are not ready to stay there. Of course, we can fill the taxes every year with 2 minutes, and I'm not kidding, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, depends where the taxes come from. But still, we can go better from there. So what we say is that 5 million hours annually interacting with tax administration companies, for example, have to spend, because they have to fill in the data that they have to log in, they have to control, the tax office has to respond, somebody has to be on the other end, they have to make the adjustments, manually updating, things like that. So we want to move from there, actually something that is completely automated. So imagine you hire somebody, it's in your system, in your financing or fiscal system of your company, automatically the information flows into the tax office, so nobody has to do a different data set, but you have this smooth connection. So we call it like next level 3.0 in our case. So it's like contactless tax environment, what we want to see. So it helps to reduce the burdens, helps to reduce the working costs, and of course it will in generally lower the costs that you do, and where the tax service in the end then can be completely something else, meaning it can offer more value through analysis and not just oversight. So give you actually added value as a company, saying that look, you could do even better, you can be smoother, the tax regulation supports you here and there. That is something that we plan to actually run already next year. And as I say, it saves millions of hours annually. That's our assessment. And of course helps us to have AI run then through the whole tax system, fiscal services, and so on. So that's where we stand at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and that was very impressive to hear about your contactless tax environment and the millions of dollars it gains in savings, as well as you say, the effectiveness it can bring to decision making around tax policy. We're going to move now to Sweden, if that is okay, to Her Excellency Ms. Diana Janse. Now, Sweden has been a fantastic partner in supporting countries advance integrated national financing frameworks, as well as domestic resource mobilization. How can Sweden's approach to supporting strategic and evidence-based public finance reform advance equity, sustainability, and long-term resilience?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. I think I will actually talk a bit about how we work with taxes as one means of domestic resource mobilization, as it's obviously a key one. And Sweden has long been known for our taxes. We were for long the most heavily taxed countries on we're also part of the tax inspectors without borders. I love that word. That UNDP and OECD also runs, and this is of course also a useful tool when it comes to developing your own ability to resource to mobilize domestic resources. What I also picked up during the conference, and I think this is crucial in this context, is it's of course not only the nitty-gritty work of a tax agency. Of course, you need to be able to fit that into a larger platform, be it legislation, etc. And it's good to hear how the World Bank is sort of now looking more, as I understand it, to comprehensively support this sector. I mean, how can a country really get the whole picture together, and then a reform tax agency will be a part of that work. And I think this is absolutely necessary, because in the end it doesn't matter if you have the most fantastic, flawless, digitalized tax agency if you don't have the right legislation in place. I also want to emphasize what I think has done a tremendous difference in Sweden for people's willingness to pay taxes is of course to feel that they get something in return, but it's also the transparency issue that is crucial. And here also digitalization and the use of visualization of data is of course yet another tool. So how can citizens actually access data on where taxpayers' money is spent, and that underpins the willingness to pay tax, and also reasonable transparency in what actually citizens get for that. I also want to finally, I hope I don't spend my 5 minutes yet, but I want to, what I think has also been key to the Swedish model, if you wish, is, and now I'm talking from a citizen's perspective, not as much as from companies, because I have less knowledge about that, but it's also how our tax agency, which Paul, strangely enough, is one of the most popular agencies, government agencies, and it's not because people love the idea of giving away their money for taxes, but it's because they have a service approach that is absolutely unique. So if you, for instance, you fill out your declaration, it might not take 2 minutes, but you can do it online nowadays as well. Depending on how complex it is, it can take from 2 minutes to more, of course. But say you then do a mistake, you won't be fined and sort of, you will have someone from the tax authority that calls you up and say, I'm reviewing your declaration, and it seems to me that you picked the wrong box here, or you misunderstood this and that. And you sort of, and that builds trust, and it is also, it also sorts out problems before they become real problems. So you have a chance to correct that. And that service attitude that we're here to make it easy for you to do the right thing, I think that is also a part of the recipe for a tax system that has legitimacy. And this we are willing to also share. Thank you. And it's good we have the tax authority representative with us here today at the conference.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Minister, for outlining really the whole of the fiscal ecosystem and how it connects across tax and expenditure, how actually linking tax and expenditure helps when it's transparent and accountable, those linkages, to build trust in institutions and strengthen the social contract. I think that was an excellent example. I'm sure many countries would love to learn from the experience in Sweden. So thank you for sharing. I'm now going to pass over to Ms. Hege Halland, Director General from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway. And Norway has been a real leading voice in the Sevilla commitment. And congratulations to Norway for the achievement of the outcome document for this conference. It's really important that we came here with that outcome document already agreed. I'm sure everybody notes the positive energy in the conference that's been created by that. So huge congratulations. Now I've got a long question for you as well as a long introduction I just gave. So I would love to know a bit more about how you've been supporting tax cooperation, data for financing, gender equality, budget transparency, a lot of the issues we're talking about here. How can these different areas of support work together to help drive what we might call the next phase of global reforms and implementation? Another grand question. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this is a really, thank you for inviting and for organizing this. And this is really taking place at a very crucial moment, I think, also when we see a lot of the financing sources declining globally. And so domestic resource mobilization becomes even more important. And this conference is really timely and also has some initiatives here that are so important to follow up. And as you said, we
support to this work, and really the way that you've made the links across some of these initiatives is really important, because the Severe Platform for Action is not just 130 initiatives, and it is 130 initiatives, but it's also a lattice work of initiatives and partners that need to come together. And I think the reference to the data initiative is critically important when we're talking about public finance as well. So thank you so much to our representation from government who's given us those remarks. We're now going to move to the multilateral system. It's great to have Mr. Matt Davis with us from the Fiscal Affairs Department of the IMF. And I know that the IMF is rolling out the Global Public Finance Partnership and supporting countries through integrated tools and diagnostics. So Matt, how can public finance reforms better connect with development outcomes on climate, gender and SDGs more broadly? Matt.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me here. I'm going to start like many of my colleagues from taxes, and because I'm from the IMF, also the macro side of taxes. Some of you will have heard this already from our Deputy Managing Director, Nigel Clark, at Round Table yesterday, the Beatles this morning, the CCT event. But it's so important that it bears repeating. There's a really strong, important connection between tax capacity, state capacity, growth, and therefore development. We've done a lot of work that shows there's a strong linkage between your ability to get over a threshold level of tax to GDP and sustained economic growth. That's what underlies the 15% target in the compromiso. We've redone the work and it backs up the importance of that target. But what our recent work also shows is that the benefits aren't just in economic growth. When you cross this threshold, it's associated with deeper financial sectors, better public sector governance, more performance, more effective governance, and all of these have strong obvious connections to development outcomes and poverty reduction. We know, and we've heard many countries though are well below this threshold, but there's certainly hope there. If low-income countries can raise their tax administrations and policies together, from colleague, they could raise possibly up to 7% more in tax to GDP and really get over that threshold. This mix of policy and administration reforms is really powerful. We've seen that better tax administrations are associated with not only better tax compliance, but more labour productivity. More labour productivity, more growth equals more poverty reduction. But that relies on the other side of this equation, public spending. How it delivers the health, education, public sector infrastructure, defence, security, that help translate growth and revenue mobilisation into broadly distributed development outcomes. And these expenditure policies that build the social contract, we've heard about a lot here, they're fundamental to the voluntary tax compliance that's vital to kind of sustain revenue mobilisation. So public financial management reforms are critical, not just on the expenditure policy side, but also on the PFM systems. These can mobilise resources in a different way. By ensuring money is spent in an efficient way, can free up significant amounts of business space. We've seen that in many developing countries, around 30% of public investment spending can be lost through inefficiencies. If you can get some of this back, I think all of it is probably too ambitious, you can really start increasing the resources that are available through domestic revenue mobilisation. And these PFM systems are also vital for delivering the outcomes of the social contract are based on. They provide both the information for evidence-based expenditure policies and the delivery mechanisms in education, in health, in social protection. So we've got a kind of this connected public finance system is a really important idea, but it's a challenging and it's a long-term task. Its kind of fundamental point is it requires nationally dependent strategies that enable authorities to build trust, tax fairly, to spend wisely. And that's a national thing, but there's an important, and as Peter will tell me, subsidiary and subordinate role for the international community. That's not just through financing, but through capacity building. And this commitment in the companies to try and double is really important. Capacity building is actually a third of what the IMF does. That's not a well-known fact, I think. But we recently reviewed our strategy and we want to increase our flexibility, tailoring and integration to make progress in this area. And the GPFP is a key part of the Global Public Finance Partnership, which I'll use GPFP for now, is critical to implementing that. At the end of the round table yesterday, I think the moderator made a really excellent summary of the discussion. He emphasised, at least in my notes, three things: the interconnectedness of the wide range of political topics addressed, the importance of governance and sovereignty, and the necessity for international support and coordination. For us, those are all central to why I established the GPFP. It's there because it brings revenue and spending together under one roof for the fund. It's an integrated financing vehicle, and it finances country-centred public finance reform programmes that emphasise this interconnectedness and the synergies between revenue and spending. It allows us to integrate well with other fund activities, lending, surveillance, and also the integration of critical issues for development outcomes like climate change, the digitalisation we heard about in Estonia, gender, all sorts of. So that these country programmes are fundamental. And by placing these country-owned strategies at the centre of what we do, we're addressing that sovereignty and governance point that the moderator made yesterday. And this also helps us work on the coordination side, the international support coordination, this final point. We work with the World Bank and many other partners at country level through these programs to coordinate what we do, and the UNDP obviously, and tax expense-led borders, to make sure that we're getting the most efficiency out of public monies. And at the global level, the GPFP also serves as a forum for cooperation and coordination. So finally, we've done the international coordination. Our success depends on international support. We're really grateful that the development fund has already financed our programme. Two of them are on this table today, Norway and Sweden. Very grateful. I don't have the time to quote all the others, but very grateful. And we hope that the strong commitment to putting more resources to capacity development and domestic resource mobilisation in companies will help us continue this. We're hoping to deliver about 200 million support over 5 years to our members. It's an ambitious target. We think it's vital to achieve the development aims of companies, and we're looking forward to working with all of you in this room to do that.
Thank you so much, Matt, and thank you for beginning with the importance of the basics, the basic foundations, the 15% tax to GDP ratio, which is in the outcome document, as you say, and the fundamental tax capacities that are needed to get to that ratio. And congratulations to you, to Vitor, to the IMF, and to Sweden and Norway here for the Global Public Finance Partnership. I think it really is a really important initiative for all of us. Now to pass to hear about another important initiative, which we've been hearing about a bit. I'm very pleased to introduce Aurea Goni, who is our lead advisor on public finance for SDGs in UNDP. Over to, and as I pass to you, Aurea, just to warn everybody, I'm coming back to you after this presentation, so please be prepared with those questions and comments. Aurea, over to you.
Thank you, Tom. If I ever give them time to speak after my intervention. So I hope I will be quick and fast, but I wanted also to build on everything we covered yesterday from member states. Can you hear me now? Yesterday in the round table, and I wanted to share with you and recap on all of that. Reflected in the Compromiso de Sevilla, but also going into most of the countries underlying the fact that the PRN is the backbone of development. Most of the countries referring to progressive taxation. You know, the concept of progressive taxation is already there. What do we need, right? What do we need and how do we make it happen? The work on efficiency for public financial management, talking about public financial management, others were talking about fiscal policies, others were talking about the spending better, more efficiently, transparency, governance, digital tools, and all of it leading to the concept that all of the previous distinguished speakers were referring to, the social contract, right? Recuperating trust and serving the citizens and obviously contributing to the SDGs, which is also what is bringing us here. So in UNDP, together with our partners that are sitting in this table and also serving the member states that were in the previous section of the panel, we've been working to define, identify, how can we adapt ourselves also and respond to these demands? How can we do it in a form where we are collaborating, we're not reinventing the wheel? Where is the added value for UNDP to join this discussion and also to contribute we see in the SPY that we can project afterwards is collaboration. Collaboration being driven by the following key areas. Coherence. Coherence meaning we want to make or integrate the whole ecosystem of finance, bringing the revenue, but we mean revenue authorities also, right? And we mean making sure that the national revenue authorities are also talking with ministries of finance. We mean audit institutions. We mean members in the parliament. So that whole of society approach, right? So how do we bring that coherence from the revenue side, from the expenditure side, but also from the debt management side, right? We need to bring all the angles together. And we heard the previous experiences also from the Maldives. You know, we heard from different countries how do we need to connect the dots from the different parts, the revenue, the expenditure, the debt management. Now, how do we make it, you know, public finance cannot be agnostic. We need to make it development oriented. How do we connect it with planet, with nature, with gender equality? How do we make it inclusive? How do we control the inequalities that we are promoting even through our public finance system? So how do we reverse the trend? And how do we make use of the tools we have today? So this is the level of the digital, the digitalization, the AI. This is the solution that we need to make sure that, you know, how do we regulate it? How do we make sure we're using it properly for the revenue side, the expenditure side too? So it is about, you know, simplifying tax compliance, but that also is about transparency. It is about efficiency. So how do we make use of all of these elements? Coherence, integration, digital, and then the last word is governance. We heard from previous experience, and the question from the excellent question from the panelists was also about that governance. Governance is also the best of that for UNDP to come into this picture, right? We bring that whole of society and whole of government approach, and we want to work on promoting transparency, accountability, and of course also working with our partners towards efficiency, and obviously making sure that we are serving the government and we are behind the driving seat of the government and the ministries of finance leading the way. So with that, I want to say thank you for everyone, and the colleagues that are even in the audience for joining. And we also have the public finance for SDGs, which we will be signing afterwards with the colleagues from Norway, the contribution and the initial agreement that we have, and we are very grateful. Same with Finland, that will have will contribute to the initiative. We have more partners that are adding up and joining forces. There is an intention to work at supranational level. There is the huge agenda on fiscal decentralization, which also connects with development outcomes, and the colleagues from Mexico have also referred to it. We are projecting here, well, I don't know if we are, but we should be projecting the second slide, which is talking about the collaborative. This is, I'm not going to go through it. We will have a chance to go through it, but I will leave the space there for colleagues and for the audience to ask questions. The intention is, it's not set in stone. This is a collaborative that is aiming at bringing as many institutions and partners as they are willing to, and this is an expression of the intention that we have here to make sure that we are joining forces with the broad set of the financing ecosystem. Over to you, Tom. I don't know.
Thanks, Aurea, and you covered a lot of ground in a short space of time, which is appreciated. I think the message that we're trying to leave you with around the collaborative is actually, if you look I'm obsessed with the Severe Platform for Action. We're here in Seville, right? And of those 130 initiatives, I haven't done the complete maths yet, but there are at least 15 to 20 that relate to public finance. And what we're trying to offer here is how do we look across those initiatives and combine them in a way that adds up to more than the sum of the parts. It's a loose collaborative. We're not forcing anyone to do anything, but just to talk and work through how it is that our methodologies, technical assistance, and support can combine and add value in the best best possible way. So thank you so much, Aurea, for sharing us that information on the initiative. Now, I've given you plenty of time to warm up to questions. Excellent, sir. Thank you so much. Now, I'm not sure where the microphone is. Excellent. Why don't we start here with this gentleman, and then we'll move over to you, sir.
Hello, I am Vaibhav and I am working on agriculture finance at United Nations University in Flores, Dresden, in Germany. So my question is, I understand that we all understand in fact that the major source of public revenue and the public finance is the tax. And generally we see that the tax language is a bit difficult or a bit different from the general audience language. So how do you bridge this gap, and how do you make these like two authorities, or basically two institutions like public and the tax authorities, communicate with each other?
Challenging question. I'm going to ask though, if we could pass the microphone, you might want to come around the front, nudge past Vitor, and there, if you could introduce yourself as well, please, sir.
Yes. So my name is Henrik Lund. I'm from the Swedish Tax Agency. So thank you for the introduction. So we're working. We've done capacity building projects since 1985. So we're actually with other agencies. We have actually an anniversary this year, 4th year anniversary. Last year we did capacity building international cooperation for 6 million euros, and it's mainly long-term cooperation. 3 years, but preferably 6 years or 9 years. It's typically demand-driven, so we work with all areas, both support and core business. We are a couple of tax administrations working in this way, and we're organized. Many of us are organized within the OECD, within the Forum for Tax Administrations, the capacity building network, where we're learning from each other and also trying to coordinate so we don't overlap and so forth. But what I say often is that, and we have UNDP and IMF, the big actors, and one difference between us, I think, is that we don't do policy with Swedish Tax Agency, and I think as we are an agency, we don't push for different tax policies, but when the what is decided, then we can support in the how. But I think in the IMF and the World Bank and the UNDP, you have also the policy side. And I think often when we establish a cooperation with a partner, we see that they have had process of cooperation with one of the big international organizations and decided a strategy for 5 years or something on how to proceed. And then we might come in afterwards and supporting how to do it. But I'm thinking, could we find synergies earlier? So could we cooperate in another way? So we are quite organized within the OECD, but we are also single tax agencies with different frameworks in each country, different forms of financing. So how could we cooperate, either individually or through our capacity network?
Okay, thank you so much. Another very good question. Now, I'm going to pass to our panelists for both the response to those questions and any final remarks you want to make, because we're now sadly at the end of the event, and I'll just travel down, so please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm probably focused on the first question, and I'm not sure if I understood it correctly, but I'm not sure there is a difference in language of public and the tax authority, not at least in the Estonian case. And I put it together with your questions. Like, the tax policy is one thing, that's always debatable, so it is in Estonia. Just today was the income tax raised by 2% more. The reason is why we raised that is because the security situations are put more into the defense. There is a clear connection. People don't debate about that. They know that it's going to cost them more, but they know what it's worth to live safe and defend itself, for being able to do so. So that's policy is always debatable. Car taxes, big topic in Estonia, never have been, now they are posed, now they are not existent anymore, all happened about half a year. So yes, no, so that's one thing. But I think what I want to say also, and I'm not sure really, I'm not from the tax authority, I can't give you the answer how the tax authority should work together. But what we see from Estonian perspective is that when you have a policy and you make a very human-centric solutions, how you can pay taxes, which is so simple that there is no point to not paying them. So that is something that you can actually gain a lot of revenue through that. Because nobody wants to avoid that, even because it's cool. People think it's cool. As my Swedish colleague Diane said, like people like the tax authority. Bizarre way in Estonia as well, that they are one of the most popular authorities, and not only because they have great solutions, but it's also the same, the service driven, they're kind of this social contract that they're able to bring. They are like a friend. Whatever you ask, they give you a response. And they really do take it personally, saying like, yeah, look, I'm here to help, I'm not here to punish. So I think it's like two different things. And looking from Estonian perspective, I think when you set the policy, even when it's not very highly liked in some elements, when you make the implementation as transparent, simple, and human-centric as possible, then you actually have won only not the half, but 90%, and also you gain the taxpayers' trust.
Thank you so much, very inspiring. Please.
Thank you. And I can also subscribe to that. You know, it's funny how it's it's the same kind of system in Norway, and it's really, it also gives you personally a good overview of your economy in a way, and it's also very service minded. So, and we have the same kind of system, and we also have our tax authority that has a very important role in our development cooperation as well. We have this program called Tax for Development, which is part of our knowledge bank, and I think the demand there also is higher than the capacity. So I think now in these times where we really need to avoid, we need to think outside of the box, and also how we can work more efficiently and avoid duplication. But of course we have to look at how we can collaborate and draw on the capacities that are there. But this capacity building is really important to us. I think one thing that I wanted to, talking about looking at the whole system holistically, also a point I wanted to make is the choice between this agenda and the anti-corruption agenda and the illicit financial flows agenda. So I really, to build this trust in our tax systems, also we need to fight corruption and make sure that these leakages are not there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously subscribe to everything that's just been said. One thing I just add, particularly talking to the synergies and how do you get involved, Mike, which also speaks to the communication. In contexts where the governance setup isn't quite so advanced, one of the mechanisms that's been used by the IMF and its partners in the platform for collaboration with tax is the medium-term revenue strategy, which tries to bring this connection between the needs of expenditure, the needs to justify the revenue needs on the basis of society's needs, and then puts in place a kind of 5-year reform plan, as you mentioned, to try to say, how do we get from here to the intermediate target we need to be? And that's a nationally owned document. It's something that the development partners can get behind, and it serves to coordinate and help set the agenda. And it's not just the agenda for the IMF or World Bank, or it's whoever's working in the country. So those are the good entry points. It helps draw that communication point between what the government's broad needs are and the revenue needs, which is critical for the social contract we talked about. So I'll probably not forever, but I shall.
Maybe we are the co-leaders. We are looking forward to making sure that we transmit this in a simplified language. And well, we want to make finance, or to demystify finance, and this is exactly what we've been doing for the past years together with the colleagues from Tax Inspect, with the borders and through the tax for SDGs. So we hope we will get there, and then working at the community level also to inform and to connect with service management.
Great, well thank you so much to our panelists and to all of you. And as we end, I'd like us please to applaud and celebrate really, because again, the Sevilla outcome document, the Sevilla commitment is an opportunity to rejuvenate, redouble, as it says in the document, our efforts on domestic resource mobilization and public finance. So it is a step forward, it really is. And also to celebrate the Sevilla Platform for Action initiative that's been discussed here. 15 organisations, all types are joined already, and we encourage others to do so as we do redouble our efforts. So thank you to everyone, and particularly the panel.